The first team we're going to talk about, again, another down year, new head coach. We actually stole their coordinator.
We did.
Pretty much stole it right out from under them. They bring in a transfer quarterback, again, something that could go make or break a team. If you want to hop into a little bit about them, just kind of let everybody know.
Yeah, the University of Houston, we play them, thankfully, after our bye week, the bye week is right after we play Utah on the road, after we knock out our 3 non-conference games, and then we go on the road and play Utah. That's going to be a much-needed bye week. I think it's perfectly placed on our schedule, which is going to align with how our record is going to look at the end of the year, because if we are 4-0, go after the Utah game and get that bye week, I think there's actually a real chance that this game could kind of be a sneaky game in the Big 12, because Houston's schedule is pretty easy leading up to our game. There's a real chance this could be 2 4-0 teams heading into this game, because they play Stephen F. Austin, Rice, they play Colorado at home, and then also Oregon State, just like how we play on the road. There's a good chance, Willie Fritz, he is a great coach, even though they didn't have a great first year last year. He's a great coach. He knows how to build culture. He got a good quarterback transfer in Connor Wegman from Texas A&M, who was an X5 star. They have an underrated receiving core in Stephon Johnson and Mekhi Muse. Their defense did lose a lot. They obviously lost Shieldwood to us. They lost A.J. Salsey to LSU and Anthony Holmes Jr. to us as well, which is probably where we're going to expose them on the defensive side of the ball. It could be maybe a more high-scoring game than we thought of before the season when this game was scheduled. But this is a game that Texas Tech should win by at least 2 touchdowns, I think. But I think this could be a close game for the majority of the game until the fourth quarter when we pull away. And I think this could be a sneaky game.
Yeah, I like you touched on the transfer Connor Wegman from Texas A&M. I think a stat that really popped out, and because theoretically Texas Tech, you start 4-0, your preseason in the top 25, you could be a top 15 team at this time, depending on how things shake out, with a lot of big time teams playing each other at the beginning of the season. Connor Wegman, at his time at Texas A&M, when he played top 10 teams, he had an 80% completion percentage, as well as 8 touchdowns to no interceptions. He has played up to the challenge when he played the high-profile teams. You get a lot of those games in the SEC. He's going to come in. He's not going to face as many of those, but you could theoretically see a place where Texas Tech is in that 10 to 15 range, which is where he plays really well. The thing that's going to really stand out is, does he have the same weapons that he had at Texas A&M? You brought up a couple of guys that are kind of sneaky, under the radar kind of guys, not something you really think of at Houston, where they're going to have this prolific offense. They're going to be much better than they were last season. They're bottom nationally, in pretty much everything. 132nd in points, 126th in total offense. I mean, that is, abysmal. That's Texas Tech defense level of statistics. For that offense, you got some guys, Stephon Johnson talked about, a senior, and then I think one guy that's going to stand out is a highly touted transfer, Tanner Kozile from Ball State, the tight end. He's a huge guy, 6'7", but he's quick for the way that he is, and he's going to be a really big part of this newly revamped offense. But again, Texas Tech, I believe, should take care of business. But it's a game that could be sneaky challenging for Texas Tech, but I think overall that's a game you have to win, and you should win. No excuse about it. This team should have no excuses for a lot of these games we're going to talk about, and that's one of them. But that's also going to transfer into another sneaky under-the-radar game. So this team's not highly looked at preseason, but they have one of the most interesting players in the Big 12 in Jalen Daniels, another returning quarterback. A couple of years ago, he was looked at as a Heisman favorite going into last season. Missed a lot of time throughout his time there with shoulder injuries, leg injuries, but he still was second team all Big 12. I mean, this talks about how this guy is proven to be electric, both with his legs and with his arm, and he, like we talked about earlier, Oregon State and Malik Murray, the team will go as far as he goes, and we're going to see very soon how good he really is.
When Jalen Daniels plays for Kansas, and when he plays well, they win most of the time, and if he stays healthy, kind of similarly to Houston, they have a somewhat easier schedule to start the season. They start with Fresno State. They actually play this next week too, so we'll be able to see kind of how Kansas looks against a pretty decent opponent in Fresno State, but they should easily win that game. And then also an FCS team in Wagner, They get to play Cincinnati, UCF, and West Virginia as their other 3 games. I think that they win all those other 3 games. And then they play the renewed rivalry against Missouri, which will definitely be a high-profile game that week whenever it happens. And if they somehow win that game, there's a potential that there could be a huge matchup in Lubbock if they are 5-1 or 6-0. This could end up being the best home game on the whole entire schedule for Texas Tech, especially after we talked about with the troubles that happened at BYU. You know, we originally thought that was going to be the big home game. There's a lot of potential that this Kansas game could be one of the biggest games of the whole entire year for Texas Tech, but we do get them at home, and even though that they could potentially be 5-1, 6-0, I think Texas Tech's going to be sitting around the same record as well. And I think being at home, I think Texas Tech should walk out with a W, but with as talented as Jalen Daniels can play up to his highest potential and how great of a coach Lance Leipold is, this could be a really challenging game at home, and I think it could be a really close game also.
Yeah, this is that trap game kind of on your schedule. You know, you're facing a team with a lot of potential, but not a lot of. They haven't produced. A lot of their guys have not produced at the high major level. I mean, you got a really good center. You know, the transfer from Texas A&M 2 years ago, who was all second team All Big 12 last year, Bryce Foster. You know, some guys that can play up to that level, but they have to show it week in, week out. And that's the problem with Jalen Daniels and his time in Kansas. The injuries have really affected him, and he hasn't played. And I'm really interested, how is he going to fare without Devin Neal? You know, Devin Neal carried the workload when Jalen Daniels wasn't at his top peak. They had a guy that they could just give the ball to. Colorado game, for example, last year, he just took over that game. They could not stop him, load the box. It did not matter. Do they have that guy to help him out? On paper, we don't see it. But, you know, any day you can find a new player. I mean, there's some guys, obviously, in the Big 12 that just peak every year. Cam Scatterbo was not really talked about that much before last season, and he was amazing. And that's going to lead us into, arguably, you know, this and UCF are kind of the games I've marked on the schedule as you got to just put them away early. Teams that you can't give, a lot of, thought of winning, a chance of winning. You go, you beat them. And then you put some Will Hammonds of the world, the young guys in at the end, kind of give your guys some break. There's not a lot of guys. I think the one guy that I'm going to talk about is Jalen Davies, the corner that they have. He was the top player, on R.J. Young's Ultimate 136 to start the season. He's got 105 tackles, a couple interceptions, but it's going to be looking for a huge rebound as we scored over 50 points on him last year.
Yeah.
It's just going to be something. No Ollie Gordon, who kind of was the guy for them. I don't know. It's just going to be an interesting team.
Yeah, Oklahoma State, really weird season last year. They did not have a good season at all, and Mike Gundy, he's a legendary coach throughout the country, not just the Big 12, and he has had such a successful time at Oklahoma State, but they were gutted again in the portal. They did receive a really talented quarterback in Haas Haney, who is coming over from TCU, and also bringing the offensive coordinator Doug Meacham from TCU over as well. Haas Haney is a really talented player, and he was in high school as well, coming out of Aledo High School. He could be a spark plug for them. He's great with his legs as well as his arm if he does end up winning that starting job as a redshirt freshman. So, that could be their bright spot this season. Maybe they win a few more games here and there, but there's no reason at all that Texas Tech should not win this game by multiple touchdowns. And I think that's going to be kind of the common theme as we head through these next 2 games as well. These are the conference games. We talked about all the tough ones so far. These are the games that have to be absolute must-wins, not mess around in the fourth quarter against teams that we should be easily beating by multiple touchdowns.
Yeah, I completely agree. You talked about it. These are games where, there's not a lot to talk about for us because, these are going to be really new teams, really. On paper, a lot of these teams are new. A lot of these players are new. And that's going to lead us into the next team we're going to play, who is, on paper, arguably the worst team in the Big 12. New coach that they brought back, Gus Malzahn, is there now. It's just chaos, it seems like, right there, right now. One of the guys, their current running back, Miles Montgomery, is going to be their guy. He's going to carry the workload, trying to fill in for R.J. Harvey. I just don't know what he has. They were very powerful last year in the backfield. Now you have really the one guy solidified. How will he fare being the lead back? That's something we're going to have to find out real early in the season. I think just the major departure of RJ Arby is going to be huge for this team, as well as just completely gutting the coaching staff.
Yeah, and and Gus Malzahn, he is a good coach, but with the talent that they have returning, I just don't really see them having a very successful season as well. This once again should be an very easy win for Texas Tech, but you never know. They could be a lot better than how we're perceiving them, because they could have some younger guys that are better than what we know. But as far as what we do know, this should definitely be an easy win for Texas Tech. And then lastly, the West Virginia game, I do think that this game, separate from the last two games we've talked about, this one could be more tricky than the other two for sure, because of where it's placed on the schedule. This is our last regular season game. It's on the road. It's after Thanksgiving. It's probably going to be cold. And, Rich Rodriguez, this is going to be more than likely their Super Bowl in his first season as a head coach there. They bring in over 70 new guys in their program, but they do have a really good running back, Jaheim White, coming back. But it could be really tricky to end this game in the regular season. But once again, this should not be a game Texas Tech is losing, and they should cap off a very strong regular season with a win on the road at West Virginia.
Yeah, this is one of those games that you're right. Another trap game on the schedule. Nico Marichal has been there a long time now. He's been the starting quarterback for 2.5 years. Guy that's kind of shaky likes to run the football. Not so great with his arm. He's going to be the center focus of that offense. Rich Rod is great. He's been great. Now, he might be a couple of seasons away, it seems like, from building, back to where West Virginia was a couple of years ago. I don't know. It's one of those games that you talked about. It's a sketchy time for Texas Tech. You could be either solidified in a Big 12 championship berth, which changes every aspect of this game, or you could be battling. This could be one game where you have to win. And last year we saw West Virginia at the end of the year came to Lubbock, and we, wiped the floor with them. And I'm hoping that that's the same thing and Coach McGuire is going to have to do a great job of getting these guys ready. They've struggled a little bit on the road under his tenure, a little bit. They started picking up some big-time wins. Iowa State last year on the road. This is going to be the game that's really going to determine. I think it's really going to change depending on where they are at in the standings, on how important this game really is, and where West Virginia is. Are they playing for anything? Are they injury depleted? There's a lot of things that happens at the end of the season, but you're right, this game could go either way, and I think it's going to be very interesting.